So you've got this special week planned?
Yeah. It's sort of a crazy festival.
Skål!
This only happens every 90 years.
That sounds fun.
Uh-oh.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
You're not supposed to be in here.
This is feeling really wrong, and we need to leave.
Oh, we are so very happy to have you.
So we're just gonna ignore the bed?
It's a bear.
Skål! And welcome to Cinema Eclectica, the Geek Show dedicated movie podcast. I am Graham, and this week I've been joined by...
Aidan, hello.
Indeed, yes. And we're here, as my subtle piece of culturally appropriative introduction will tell you, to discuss Ari Aster's new film, Midsommar.
Yes, it's very much Midsommar where I live. In that there's a lot of pagan rituals, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and whenever the tourists turn up, they immediately disappear.
Can we do a Midsommar Murders gag about this, or will it be too UK specific?
It might be a bit too UK specific there.
Might be a bit, yeah. Later on in the show, we've got reviews of the Cockleshell Heroes and DemonLover, but we should probably get on and talk about Midsommar because it is the talking point of the week, is it not?
Yeah, it certainly is the bigger one than... I know we had Spider-Man Far From Home also at the same week, so... It was kind of a war between those two films, but I think due to the fact that it's the new Ari Aster movie, the guy who did Hereditary, which is like one of the bigger talking points horror films last year, I think that would have been had the bit more of an edge.
And we did Hereditary last year, and I mean, I remember it was you, me, and Ryan on that show, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah.
And I remember Ryan absolutely loved it, and I remember I was kind of generally positive on it, but I had problems with the ending. Where did you fall again? Was it
Hereditary?
Yeah.
Well, I think on reflection, I was a bit mixed on it per se. I still like the film, but I do think it does have some story problems, as you were saying, like the ending and, generally the final act of the film.
Yeah, and I was curious as to how we deal with this, because one of the first things I knew about Midsommar was that it was an 18 certificate.
Was Hereditary 18?
No, it was 15.
Oh, right, okay. I didn't know whether that was an 18 or not. No.
Very few horror movies now seem to get to the 18 certificate. Very few movies of any kind now seem to get to the 18 certificate. So I was curious. I was thinking, was the pulpier tone that I found to be kind of unpalatable at the end of Hereditary going to come back and dominate here? And if so, would that be good or bad?
Yeah, I was going into the screening with a lot of trepidation because I also had to drive in to go see this to my nearest multiplex, which is about 20 miles away. So, I was going into this like in particularly anxiety-ridden, especially my reception of the last time we subjected ourselves to an Ari Aster movie.
Yes, yeah. I should point out, actually, now we're talking about cinema experiences, that I saw it in a local multiplex, which I had been to fairly recently, and I knew that the air conditioning was stuck on very cold.
The aircon in mine was a little bit chilly as well.
I assumed they'd fixed it by now, but it turned out they really, really, really had not. So if I sound unusually irritable when talking about this, it is because I was stuck in like a near sort of... I was stuck in the kind of cinema where you could store meat.
Which is ironic, considering the sunny tone of the film.
Yeah. Because this is set in Midsommar, as the title suggests. It centres around Danny, a college student played by Florence Pugh, who is about to break up with her boyfriend when, and it's safe to say this, isn't it? It isn't in the film, but it happens within the first 10 minutes. She has a family tragedy.
Yeah, she does.
Her sister and her parents die in what appears to be kind of a murder-suicide, and her boyfriend, Christian, played by Jack Rayner, decides that he can't break up with her now, and they end up going to a Swedish Midsommar festival, which is billed as a traditional rite that is performed by people who've been doing this for generations, and their anthropologist friend takes them there. And in the time-honoured tradition of horror movies since the year dot, it turns out to be not a good idea.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Because this is Ari Aster's stab at doing folk horror, right?
Yeah, strong quotations around this, because I've also heard the slight genre twisting of comedy as well, which I don't particularly agree with.
No, I don't.
It's definitely
that either.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some elements of humour, which I assume we'll get onto in a minute. But through and through, I do think I would agree it's a folk horror.
I was quite enthusiastic when I saw people talking about the comedy aspect of it earlier, because I thought the ending of Hereditary was hilarious.
Yeah.
The unexpected Garth Marenghi's Dark Place influence that comes in right at the end of Hereditary could be, I think, really good if it was done deliberately. And I watched Midsommar, and I'm going to lay my cards on my table now. I became increasingly volcanically angry at it.
Yeah. I'm on the fence with it. I don't hate it, but I had my problems with it too.
I mean, my first thing, and I know this sounds like a nitpick, but I think it's emblematic of how much Ari Aster understands the folk horror genre, is that his film Midsommar, right, which is set at a midsummer festival, right, deals with a group of people who are looking for a May Queen.
Yes.
Midsommar. May.
Oh, right. Okay. Right, I get you now. Yeah.
And I felt like this is one of the key problems with it, because folk horror is a genre that has got increasing scrutiny recently. And I suppose it was probably inevitable that something like this would happen sooner or later, but there's no sense to me of the thematic ideas that folk horror is traditionally about, which is about a collision between the past, the old ways that have been buried under modernity, and people who are purely modern and know nothing of that. Because he's overlaid this story of a breakup between Florence Pugh and Jack Rayner's characters on it. But to me, am I being harsh here? Neither Rayner nor Pugh's characters seemed to map onto that kind of dichotomy. Neither of them seemed to represent the past or the present.
Yeah, and especially because I got the feeling like at the very ending of the film, which of course I can't really talk about, but the very ending, I just was thinking about Pugh's character and what she does to Rayner. Well, just because he did that to you, does that equally amount to leading into someone's demise? Really?
Yeah.
Because I was having a problem with that, because the character relationships does feel a bit nonsensical in areas.
I think it's that in terms of character stuff, I mean, Aster and his defenders always talk about how his films have so much more of a depth of character and theme than a standard horror film. They are... Have you heard the buzzword elevated horror?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's what commonly gets sort of brought up to explain what a director like Aster is doing. And to me, this isn't elevated so much as it is slower. Like, none of the characters become more dimensional than they would be in a standard slasher film.
Yeah.
It's just a character like, and I'm talking here about an actor I really like, but a character like Will Poulter's Mark.
I have to admit, I like Will Poulter a lot too. Yeah. He's one of these actors who, even though he does look incredibly strange, like a 12-year-old, he's still actually really good.
Yes. Yeah, I think he's promising and he's starting to show a real versatility, but Mark is kind of that character you get in every horror movie who just like spends the whole setup being ostentatiously horny and going.
No, it reminds me of, have you ever seen We Are the Millers?
I never have, no.
Which stars Will Poulter, and he plays an equally horny character in that too. So I'm just thinking, is Midsommar and We Are the Millers linked in some way?
It's part of the same cinematic universe. I think we can say that for certain.
That's mortifying.
But it's like, this is the kind of character you get in every slasher movie. He goes around going, oh, wow, I really like sex, and I look at that woman there, I would like to do a sex right.
Yeah, he does a lot of hallucinogenics too in the first. I think the first time they get to Midsommar as well, which just feels a bit tacked on.
Yeah. Now, my point is that in a standard, non-elevated horror movie, that character would have a saving grace, which is that about 20 minutes in, he'd get murdered horribly.
Yeah.
And in this, you're going for a solid hour without, like, the cult being made spooky in any way, where you just have to suffer through him.
Yeah, because there's a bit towards, I think, like 2/3 of the way through, where he decides to take a leak on a dead oak tree.
Yeah.
And, and unknowing to him, this oak tree is actually sacred towards the cult. They believe it has mystical powers or something like that. I don't quite understand what resemblance it has on the cult. All I know is that it's quite sacred.
It's ancestral, they describe it as.
Yeah.
The spirit of their ancestors.
And, I did think towards that what it was adding towards understanding the cult, really, because it just seemed to me that, I would perfectly agree with Will Poulter's character on that extent. I mean, it is a dead tree, essentially.
Yes. I mean, can we pull apart what the cult actually believe? Because I'm not going to spoil like the big horror sequence in it.
No.
But Ari Aster still, to me, is scared of some things which I just wondered, is he 10 years old?
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. Ari Aster a 10-year-old?
The question I never thought I would hear on the show.
Because, right, in the end of Hereditary and this, he is petrified of old naked people.
He is, yeah.
I want to just find him and counsel him before he goes to a beach in France and has a heart attack.
Yeah, because there was copious amounts of laughter in the film, which I didn't know whether it was intentional or not. But there's a bit where it's like Jack Rayner's ritual, basically, and everyone was kind of howling at it because of the absurd idea of just hearing which just sounds to me, it's just like, am I at a weird christening or something? What the hell's going on?
Now, Rob of this parish is very angry at Hereditary because he says, clicking your tongue is not scary. He said that was the first point at which I realised I wasn't going to like this, and he hated Hereditary much more than I did.
Yeah.
But I had the same feeling with Midsommar, which is, namely, throat singing isn't scary.
It really isn't. No, in my opinion, it's actually quite laughable. It's just. It's ridiculous. There's also that bit that I couldn't take seriously, is whenever they decided to do jazz hands. You know what I'm saying? Because the cult is towards, in the midway through the film, where Florence Pugh is dancing around, this big tree. I don't know exactly what it is. The way the cult signals each other is by doing jazz hands for some bloody reason. And in my screening, right, there was a person just mocking the film, about 2 rows in front of me, doing the exact same thing, jazz hands. So it's just what? It's incomprehensible.
Now, maybe my screening was like too preoccupied with staving off hypothermia, but I did not get any of that mocking response in it. Everyone in my screening was taking it deathly seriously, and perhaps this is part of why I took against it, because when I read other people's takes on it, a lot of the positive ones that I found more convincing have been saying, oh, it's got a real vein of black humour in it.
Well, it's kind of funny in areas, and I don't know whether it's just because I really like Will Poulter, and he does actually give me a laugh in, like, say, other works. And again, I really like Florence Pugh too, so it's just, I think, I don't know whether it's due to the cast or whether it's due to, like, people just thinking to themselves, is that supposed to be funny?
Yeah, like, there's one bit where in the cold light of day, I can appreciate that it was probably meant to be funny, but when I was watching it, it just wound me up further. I was just thinking, you cannot possibly think this is scary. Like, it's the pies, basically.
Oh, God, yeah, the pies, yeah.
Because you're led, again, no spoilers, you are led onto this banqueting table where all of the tourists are given pies to eat. And the ominous music goes through the roof as soon as those pies come on. And you think, all right, what's in the pies? I mean, the normal horror answer would be human flesh, but that feels too obvious. What's it going for? And when you find it out, you think, sorry, is this American Pie or something? What the hell?
Yeah, that did baffle me, because I was talking to my brother-in-law about this, and I said what was in the pie, and he just, like, stared at me bewildered, thinking, really? For a horror movie? Really?
But of course, it's not a horror movie, is it? It's an elevated horror, and even the people who've liked it have gone on about how, Harvey Astor says he's not a horror director, and after this, neither do I, if I'm honest. But
yeah,
I think if you're going to dress something up in folk horror clothes, you need some insight into the genre.
Yeah,
and I don't think that's here at all.
It's, well, on top of that, this is like a 2.5-hour movie as well, so it's going to be hard to, find an audience with it, because this is something that's being sold in multiplexes, and of course it does make sense to some degree. I mean, this is the guy who came out with the smash hit, well, practically one of the smash hit horrors of last year. But even then, I just think some of its ideas are just too obscure for an audience, like a mainstream audience, to fully get.
I mean, I'm going to be brutal here. You say ideas. I struggle to find an idea in it.
well, okay, fair enough.
as bleak as that sounds, I think in this, he has used folk horror, which is an interesting subgenre, but one which is fraught with risk in that the whole canon seems to be based on like about 3 British films from the 70s.
Right, yeah.
And you think that well could run dry any second. And I knew something like this was going to happen, and I'm not surprised that it was Astor who did it. He has used folk horror here like an Instagram filter. He has just slapped it over the top of the bad breakup movie he wanted to make, and there's no sense of the ancient or the uncanny in it for me. There's no engagement with actual history and archaeology. It's just like, I've got this film that could have easily been set at Coachella, but it would be much spookier if it was set at a Swedish pagan ritual.
It's, the more I think about it, the more I'm particular fence sitting with this film, because it's just, like we said, it's, too long, too up its own arse to notice anything, quite fruitionable about it. And, there is talent involved, because, like I said, I really like Florence Pugh, and I do think she's well enough.
Me too.
And I do think she's well enough cast in it to do something, she has enough material basically to work with, I guess.
Yeah.
But apart from that, and apart from her and Will Poulter, it's a bit dire.
Yeah. I was, like I say, I was really bothered by it. And I think just, you mentioned the 2.5-hour runtime. I think if you had to ask me one killer problem with it, it is the sheer slowness of it. There are bits of obvious foreshadowing and cheap characterization where I thought, all right, that's not good, that's not great screenwriting, but in a standard kind of 80-minute slasher movie, I would be less bothered by that because it would at least keep moving.
Yeah. It's because the problem is that it doesn't move that quickly, and you end up stuck in limbo for like a good hour or so before anything starts happening, and then you just it's a real. It's not even slow burn, you know. I mean, it's just slow.
Yeah.
No, because I like to mention that, you know, I read up on my Twitter somewhere, and I can't remember who said it, but someone, I guess, is a spark of, you know, praisal for Midsommar and, you know, Aster. They said, finally, Ari Aster is the American equivalent to Lars von Trier and Michael Haneke. And...
I mean, they're right. Don't get me wrong, they're right.
But in praisal, I mean...
I've seen people talk about like Bergman and Dreyer and Tarkovsky in regard to this, and I just want to say I want to punch those names out of your mouth.
Well, I'll be honest, I've admitted my guilt for this before. I actually don't mind Haneke, but I can understand why people, you know, can't stand him with a fiery passion. You know, I'm more bothered, of course, by Lars von Trier, but then again, I don't know whether it's because I have like a steely exterior to these things, really, because when people, apart from the Neon Demon, which broke me, but this...
I kept thinking of the Neon Demon when I was watching this.
Yeah, so...
Because I remember when we reviewed that, you came in just, like, swearing about what you just had to watch for the show.
Yeah. And, you know, because that broke me for some strange reason. I guess that's just the power that Nick Winding Refn, you know, has. And, you know, kudos to him for doing that, actually. I don't like him at all, but, you know, I do respect him for... if you're going to be confrontational, at least burst me out in hives. This just doesn't... this just doesn't do it at all. It's just incredibly tedious.
I mean... I was thinking about that idea of elevated horror, and one of the things that I think back to is something like the Neon Demon, or to dial it back to less confrontational shows, something like The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Yeah.
Where people say this isn't horror, and I think, okay, but if it's not horror, what it is a well thought through transgressive auteur piece that plays around with horror tropes, and I like that. I'm as happy with that as I am with a proper horror film. But watching Midsommar made me think, oh, this is why people hate elevated horror.
Yeah, it
brought it all home to me. And I was thinking, I haven't seen Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria yet. I know you loved it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And equally, well, that did get a divisive reception, but I really enjoyed it because, well, I guess Luca Guadagnino's not an idiot.
But yeah, I'm worried now, and as someone who loves Guadagnino and someone who loves Suspiria and who loves this cast, I am worried that maybe Ari Aster has made the scales fall from my eyes, and when I watch his Suspiria, I will now be thinking as my friends who hate elevated horror do. So I suppose this is my problem with Midsommar. It's not just that it's bad, it's that it's so bad it's leeching the enjoyment I might have from films I have not watched yet.
So this is basically the Mother of the year.
Oh yeah, it's very similar to Mother, yeah.
Because I remember when you reviewed that, I wasn't on that show, I remember, but I remember you coming out of
You heard my review from several miles away.
I did, I honestly did. And I don't like Aronofsky at all, but I've always known he was a bit of a dunce. Ever since the early days after Pie, it was what was the film about the Garden of Eden with Hugh Jackman? I forgot.
The Fountain, yeah.
The Fountain, yeah, which equally got a divisive reception, and then half as people sneered at it as they did love it. And you know, this is just reminding me of Aronofsky a little bit.
Yeah, I completely see your point there. I
Yeah.
don't think I found it like as angering as Mother, because with Mother I hated the ideas behind it, whereas this is just I don't think it's really worth delving that deep on. But yeah, in summary, Ari asked her, maybe he asked her, but I don't ask to watch it.
Good wordplay there. Bravo.
Should we do some recommendations?
Well, I mean, in your case, Graham, it will be things to watch instead of Midsommar.
Yeah, that is always the pitfall.
Do you want me to go first with one? Because I've got two answers to this.
Okay.
The first one is a film that I reviewed on the show about 3 years ago or something, and this is a folk horror that truly does get the idea of folk horror. But it's Jonathan Miller, Michael Hordern, Whistle and I'll Come to You.
Yes, it's so good.
Because the idea of it is just because of how subtle and eerie that film is, whereas, Asta's film is quite lurid in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And, incredibly confrontational about its beliefs. This one keeps everything closely knit by because it is just sinister and foreboding about it. And if you don't really want to see like a distraught Florence Pugh, have a grouchy Michael Hordern instead.
Yes. Yeah, it's a great film, Whistle and I'll Come to You. I can hardly second that. I think trying to be as sort of charitable as I can, I mean, I think if you watch something like Pen de Sven alongside this, then Pen de Sven's going to crush it. It's just it's going to be embarrassing.
Yeah, well, that's the idea behind Alan Clark too. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Completely. Instead, I think that this sort of story is more similar to something from the Italian cannibal cycle than it is the standard folk horror. I think if you watch this alongside something like Mountain of the Cannibal God, it might work a bit better, because ultimately there's no relationship in Midsommar between the land and the people. I mean, there is with the cults, obviously, but the protagonists, not just outsiders in the way that, say, Sergeant Howie in The Wicker Man is an outsider. They literally come from a different country. They have a different culture. They follow a different religion. They have nothing in common with these people. And so it doesn't have the kind of tingle of the repressed coming back up from the land that a good folk horror should have. So instead, I would say this is much more like that cycle of violent jungle adventure movies where cocky first worlders go over to a forgotten corner of the world and end up receiving a horrible comeuppance, except everyone's white in this film, so it's probably less problematic.
Yeah.
But that's my comparison point.
I did have a second recommendation I think this was in the liner notes to Ari Aster's film, but this is a film that I covered for 30 Countries last year, and it's a film by Sergei Parajanov. And this is The Legend of the Saram Fortress, which... Parajanov was better known because he's quite an obscure name to pull a hat on. It's not like me to recommend something like this because, trying to understand Parajanov's films is like incredibly difficult task to do because he was better known as an artist than he was really a filmmaker.
No kidding.
He was more surrealist artist. But the idea behind Saram Fortress is that, even though he is going fully surreal, it's about blockading, if I remember correctly, I think, a child in the heart of a fortress, so entombing him alive, just to save the fortress from crumbling down to the ground, which is not likely to lift anyone's spirits. But I think the idea behind Parajanov is just how much of a surrealist iconographer he was, because, there's just so much beauty to him that, honestly, you don't really... Unlike Asta, who's just, leaning on these, story elements or whatever the hell he's trying to do, Parajanov is just, throwing that in the bin and just basically saying, yeah, just look at this, and then just get blown away by it. And, it kind of works.
Hello, this is Ryan from the Geek Show Podcast Network. Do you like trees? What about paper? What about words? Yes, words are good. Then you will like Literally Loitering, unavailable on the Geek Show Podcast Network.
So if you're enjoying what you're listening to, you can donate to our Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Geek Show, or if you go to thegeekshow.co.uk and click on the link in the top right-hand corner, you'll find the Geek Shop, where you can buy our shirts and mugs and other such goodies. We are on Facebook, just search for The Geek Show, and we are on Twitter at OI Eclectica.
Hello, I'm Professor Elemental, and whenever I'm not riding a badger around my grounds or hitting my monkey butler with a stick, I'm listening to The Geek Show, and my God, I love it.
So, discussions can proceed according to schedule?
Here are the results for DemonLover.com and the connected sites since our last meeting. As you can see, business has increased by 35%, and our market share has doubled. We are now the primary distributors for Japanese comics and animated films, both in the US and the rest of the world.
And we've also acquired new names for the web, smaller sites, Manga Sex, Sex Manga, Adult Manga, SM Manga, Japan Porno. They're all directly linked to our main DemonLover site.
Very good sites.
You visited them?
Yes, sure, I did. I like them. Japan Porno, excellent.
Well, if you give us the rights to Tokyo Anime products, we'll control 75% of the world market.
So yes, if you go over to thegeekshow.co.uk, you can find some of our written reviews. Ian, you've just done one for Double Face.
Yes, I have done Double Face. That's a giallo, well, technically a giallo. It's a cross between a giallo and a German crimi film. It's basically like a murder mystery, whodunit kind of film.
And it has, I did get the chance to see this before I sent it out, and I mean, it has something which is simultaneously exciting and disappointing, which is a restrained, subtle Klaus Kinski performance.
Yeah, I don't think it was a very great film, if I'm honest. Yeah, some nice extras though. I really enjoyed the extras on an Italian composer that I never heard of before, Nina Orlandi.
Oh, well, the score to it absolutely bangs. That is one of its major assets.
Yeah, the score is fantastic.
Yeah. So that's out on the website. In terms of things we've got to review today, I've got the Cockleshell Heroes from Eureka Video. And this is, I've been doing a range of quite trad World War II films recently, which is not something I would ordinarily watch, but recently I've reviewed on this show Von Ryan's Express, Rogue Mail, Night of the Generals. On the site I've done Eye of the Needle too. And even though that kind of Sunday afternoon World War II film isn't a genre I think I'll ever wholeheartedly love, I think these films are generally more interesting than I thought they would be going in.
Yeah.
I think certainly some of that Eye of the Needle or Night of the General has a kind of psychological perversity that I really wasn't expecting. What I was expecting, I think, would be something like the Cockleshell Heroes, which is based on a real-life mission during the early stages of World War II called Operation Frankton, where the Royal Marines tried to sabotage German cargo ships and other trade lines by bombing the ships that were sent along these lines, but they couldn't bomb them by like conventional submarine methods. They had to do it literally in kayaks.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's bit of a human fault there.
I mean, I understand that it's a great British military tradition to complain about the army being underfunded, but I assume if there is a war in the Gulf anytime soon, our soldiers will not be in canoes again.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bad idea.
Yes. So this is a film based on that story, made in 1955, just 10 years after the war ended, directed by and starring the Puerto Rican actor Jose Ferrer, who was later the father of Miguel Ferrer, who was in everything from RoboCop to Twin Peaks and was a great character actor.
Oh, okay.
Ferrer, it has to be said, is very good in an otherwise entirely British ensemble. Not only British, but containing some of the Britishest actors ever, including Anthony Newley, pre-Hammer Christopher Lee.
Oh, wow.
It has Trevor Howard, whose opening line to Frank Sinatra in Von Ryan's Express is something that will forever stay with me. Maybe listen back to that episode.
Yeah, but no, I was going to bring up, because I recognised looking at the cast listing that Trevor Howard was in both Cockleshell Heroes and Von Ryan's Express, so I did notice that, yeah.
And he's so great in Von Ryan's Express, and I love that performance. In here, everyone sort of brings themselves down to a kind of median level to fit with the film's tone, and the film's tone is quite odd. I would describe it mostly as sitcom-y.
Yeah.
Which is not something that I was really prepared for in a film about World War II, made 10 films after the war's ending, but there's a long sort of first act where they're training for Operation Frankton, and the tone is somewhere between, the Virgin Soldiers and Dad's Army.
Okay.
It's pretty farcical. The soldiers are portrayed as being basically incompetent. They get into scrapes, they get their parachutes stuck in trees, they go back home and their girlfriend who they'd left throws plates at them and says, "You can't come waltzing back in here." And it's I'm not a fan of the way that people nowadays say, that things are too soon when it's something to do with crime or war or tragedy. I really hate that kind of thing where as soon as you have a film that's based on any kind of tragic real life incident, someone will be writing a column for Slate going, is it a bit too soon to make a film about the assassination of Julius Caesar? But this is the opposite extreme. I mean, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, this is like 10 years after the war's ended and you're portraying the Royal Marines. Not just the Royal Marines who specifically did this one mission, which is suicidally brave.
Yeah, it's a bit tasteless, yeah.
Yeah. And it's quite weird. It doesn't seem to have bothered people back then, but I think now tonally it just feels ill-fitting to me. I think what makes it fire a bit, other than the cast, is that once it gets into the third act of the actual mission going ahead, it's pretty solid stuff.
Yeah.
This kind of Sunday afternoon war movie that your dad loves has a reputation that when it gets into the proper military daring do, it's very stirring and powerful. And, sure enough, this works. It has a very sort of stirring martial score by John Addison. It has to be said, really terrible day for night photography, though, they all had that problem.
Yeah.
And generally, it motors ahead nicely. It ought to be noted when we're talking about behind-the-scenes stuff on the Cockleshell Heroes that one of the producers on it was Cubby Broccoli.
Okay, Cubby Broccoli? Wait, hold on. No, go ahead.
Cubby Broccoli, who later went on to produce the James Bond franchise, and indeed his daughter Barbara Broccoli still produces them to this day. And he said he actually cited the Cockleshell Heroes as the first thing that made him think that you can make this kind of action-adventure story in Britain and with a specifically British theme. So it's historically very important on that level. In a lot of other areas, it has dated, but I think considering this is the work of an American director and star coming over to Britain to make a movie about World War II. It does have a kind of authentically mid-century British feel, and although it doesn't have the sheer sort of operatic madness of something like Rogue Mail, or it's not as competently and sort of powerfully mounted as something like Von Ryan's Express. I do think if you have a sweet tooth for this kind of era of war films, you will find it pretty easy to enjoy. And that's the Cockleshell Heroes, which comes out this coming Monday, July the 15th on Eureka Video.
Yeah, because I have to be honest, the name Cubby Broccoli just sailed past my head as soon as you said it. It's his name.
Yeah, I think there is a school of our listeners who will have gone, oh, of course, Cubby Broccoli, as soon as I mentioned him. And there is a crowd who won't, because he is like almost solely remembered for this one franchise.
Yeah.
But he did a lot more.
Right. How are we going to pivot to this, Graham?
Well, if you imagine the opposite of the Cockleshell Heroes.
Yeah, so there's a bit of history between me and the film that I'm prepared to talk about on this week's Here Show. Because I have Olivier Assayas's DemonLover, which came out 2002. So this was, I think, mid-Assayas. So this came out, I think, after Irma Vep. And obviously before, the Assayas we would know for the purpose of the show, like Clouds of Souls Maria and Personal Shopper. But DemonLover, like I was saying that I had a bit of history with this because we initially got this sent in as a check disc to review. The disc didn't work initially. After that, we got a replacement disc sent in, watched it, was planning to do a written review of it, couldn't do it because I couldn't find a sense of logic with it. So, to save at the time, me and Graham have decided to do it together as a review on the show, because honestly, I do think it's one of these films that has to be talked about properly.
We're going to tag team it.
Yeah, because the problem was that if I sent it out as a written review, it would probably turn up as an overwritten mess. So I decided it would probably be better for the show. And it took some time, and I'm sorry to bring you in on board on this, Graham, but you're also the Assayas expert, so thank you for the help.
True.
Yeah.
Is this your first Olivier Assayas film?
It's not, no. My first was Personal Shopper, and and like you, because that was on your top 10 list of 2017, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Yeah, and it was also on mine. I really love that film too. Because of it's just so great, and Kristen Stewart's equally great in it.
DemonLover is a film where I guess, it's not plot driven, but if you wanted a capsule pitch, it's about a bidding war between French and American companies for the rights to a hentai website. It's just struck me, we should have producer Rob here just to react with baffled incomprehension of the plot synopsis, shouldn't we? That would be quite fun. Yeah. It's a thriller about a bidding war for a tentacle porn website. That is,
it's really bizarre.
Yeah.
So, because this is my second Assayas, and as Graham was mentioning with the synopsis there, this got a divided reception when it came out initially. So there was quite a lot of naysayers behind it. There's also an equal amount of people who praise it to no avail, like a lot of people would do with Nick Refn, as we were talking about earlier on the show. So, but the first time I watched this, I have to admit, it was completely incomprehensible to me. It's just one of these films that has got a lot of business talk in it, and for my money, I wouldn't know how to market hentai at all. I'm not that kind of person. So,
you don't? Because you're so unworldly, Aidan. I think of nothing but.
Yeah, but, because you have Connie Nielsen starring as Diane, who you would technically call as the lead character in this.
Yeah, and she is about sort of a year or two after Gladiator, so all praise to her for doing something this whacked.
Yeah. And the first time we see her, because initially all these business bigwigs, you can't really follow a sense of logic with them. Some of them are either like incredibly, hateful, and others you just think, would women really take offense to obviously running like a deal for hentai? It's a bit, a bit baffling in that regard. But Connie, the first time we see Connie Nielsen, she is, I believe, like on a plane from a flight back from Tokyo, and she decides to spike the tub of Evian water for her superior to drink. So her superior drinks the water, she gets knocked out of her mind. The superior ends up getting, who I believe is called Karen, she ends up getting taken away by a bunch of, I want to say, it's not necessarily thieves, a bit of like thugs or something like that.
It's a kind of, there's an implication that it's a kind of corporate espionage thing.
Yeah, something like that. And initially, Nielsen becomes the superior now. So she is now basically the head of the company. So basically, you have a lot of these characters who are fighting for the top dog's position in this. But you also have another complicated aspect to the plot as well, where you have, I believe it's Gina Gershon?
Yes, the great Gina Gershon, yeah.
And she plays the American bigwig of a company called DemonLover, which basically is a front for the Hellfire Club. And this is another aspect of the plot where outside of the warring for Japanese hentai, you also have it's so surreal reviewing this for the show, like. But you also have Nielsen, who operates a front for the Hellfire Club, which is basically a BDSM-run website where they capture women in real time, and basically use...
It's like Videodrome. It's like the TV channel in Videodrome, but it's on the web.
Yeah, and the user can implement any instructions, all of their deepest, darkest desires of what they would like to do with those women. So you have this completely other aspect of the plot that's just basically meshed together with this this other one. And you just end up thinking, this is confusing the more I think about it, because... I don't know whether you had this exact same problem with it, Graham, because it's kind of whacked out of its mind half the time.
I mean, I figured out fairly early on the like ins and outs of all of the corporate deals were kind of a feint. They were not going to be exactly relevant. So I enjoyed it as the first entry in a sort of vein of Asias's work, which reaches a fruition with something like Personal Shopper. Where it's about the kind of spaces of modern capitalism. It's about the fact that you can get into a glass-fronted building, get on a plane, and then get off into a different country, but that has the same glass-fronted building on the front. It reaches, like I say, it reaches a pinnacle in Personal Shopper, where about 90% of the film is spent in houses that are left empty for tax reasons.
Yeah. I have to admit, I didn't like it the first time I watched it. I've since gone back to it just to see if I could get better sense of it. One, to refresh my memory of DemonLover, and two, to obviously get bigger sense of the plot.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, even due to its incomprehensibility, I did enjoy it a bit more too, as well, on this rewatch.
Yeah.
Because it's got one of these strange qualities to it where, just the ideas of it, and, because you can clearly see this as a warning about the desensitization of, like, violent imagery over the web.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the readings of it, and that's one of, Asias's core arguments. But at the same time, there's a lot more... I think he gives it a lot more room to breathe his arguments, really, when people aren't, arguing in boardrooms. You have, like, Connie Nielsen, like, thrown in doing espionage tactics to find like a next piece of information for the puzzle. It's really quite strange the more I explain it, but the more I think about it, the more I think, actually, that wasn't half too bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's got its surface pleasures. It has a wonderful score by Sonic Youth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite great.
And its cast is like a who's who of who's trendy in the early noughties. Like I say, it's got Connie Nielsen, it's got Gina Gershon, it's got Chloe Savini, it's got that guy who played Ishii the Killer in that Takashi Miike movie. What was its title again?
Gozu. No.
The Great Spook War, that was it. So, as a time capsule now, it has a certain appeal, but I don't think that should be mistaken for saying, it's dated or embarrassing. I think it's a film that nails its moment.
Because you could technically argue, because I remember when Rob reviewed this on the show, do you remember Pulse by Kiyoshi Kurosawa? Because I remember he had a similar stance with that film about, the talks about the internet and, and in the worst case scenario, like men, women and children, which just absolutely butchers that idea. I think part of the problem...
Women and Children was made about 5 years ago, so it's got no excuse. But something like this is it Mamoru Oshii who did Avalon? The guy who did Ghost in the Shell, he did a live action movie about mass online role-playing games before that was a thing. And obviously it's dated, but if you can look past the graphics and the technology, the social dynamics it's identifying is still interesting, and I think that's the case with DemonLover as well.
Yeah, because there's a complete switcheroo towards the third act as well, where it just completely goes into thriller mode. And I have to admit that build-up, I thought I really enjoyed, because it kind of ditches the idea of all, like we were saying before, all the business talk, and it just really goes into hardened mode towards, obviously, female characters in particular, how they would behave in an idea with it. And even if the ending doesn't quite make a lick of sense, there's still some entertaining qualities about it.
Yeah, thematically, it's the right ending. I don't care if it doesn't quite add up, because part of the point of the film is that the modern structures of capitalism that exist behind these massive online companies don't quite make sense. But thematically, it's exactly what needs to happen.
Yeah, because, the more I think about it, the more I enjoyed it. And, you were talking about Chloe Sevigny earlier.
Yeah.
Because I enjoyed her quite a lot in this. Because
she's good, isn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, and Chloe Sevigny is just basically plays the personal assistant Elise, I believe, to Nielsen's character, where basically she will talk up against her superior officers. And I guess the idea behind Sevigny's character is just the underlying rage of wanting a piece of the pie, but at the same time she is on the side to Gina Gershon's character. And at no point do I feel there's hate towards her, really. Because the thing is with Asias is that...
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Even if, you can see these characters as hateable, you kind of got to respect Asias on that front, because he is a great appreciator and a great lover of how to approach female characters, no matter if that's in Personal Shopper, where you have Kristen Stewart playing basically the scooter-riding mystery shopper, really, which a lot of cynical directors would have a pop at, but Asias, just has complete, utter respect for his female characters. And I just think there needs to be more directors like that, for my money. And it is just, that's why I respect him an awful lot.
It's what I love most about Asias is that he is someone who comes at the modern world without any sort of preconception. He looks at things that are happening and he's not uncritical. I mean, DemonLover is in a lot of ways very critical about online capitalism and pornography, but you get the sense that he started off writing this just looking at the world and thinking, what's this? What's new? What's happening now? Happening in other generations.
As we were talking about earlier with Midsommar, it's not the Michael Haneke kind of thing where he's sneering at these people.
Completely, absolutely not.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't mind Haneke. I don't mind being tortured by him, but at the same time, Asias, I think, can up people like that, because there is certainly a respect towards characters, his people that he's got to. Did you have a look at the extras, Graham?
I had a quick look at the extras. There is that very good documentary shot by the film's cinematographer. I didn't get a chance to see the commentary by Asias, which I'm curious about.
Yeah, there's a great visual essay by, I think it's Jonathan Romney, in that extra, which honestly, that is worth having a look at, because he argues for the film's case as well and breaks it down quite thoroughly. And kudos to him, because it helped, again, like a lot of these Arrow Academy titles lately, like Crush to Love My Car or the Teishio trilogy, he helps explain it a lot better, especially with, interpretations. So kudos to him.
Yeah, Avo are fantastic with extras in general. I've seen Avo films that I've loved, and I've seen Avo films that I've not loved, but I've never had a problem with their extras.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even like when we were going back to Double Face, there is, even if it's like a lesser Giallo, you're still going to get your bang for your buck with the extras wise, because there's some fantastic stuff on both of those discs, really.
Yeah, it's fanish in the best way, isn't it, Avo's stuff?
Completely agree.
So yeah, it's. I mean, I really enjoyed DemonLover. It's quite early on in that strain of Assayas's work that includes stuff like Boarding Gate and Carlos and Personal Shopper. But that strain of Assayas's work is my favourite stuff he does. So I was really excited to see where it starts out.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it as a starting point with Assayas because, like I said, it has a divisive reception, so there'll be equally people who will be turned off by it and its ideas. But at the same time, it's worth building up to, especially on a rewatch, because it certainly opened my eyes a bit wider.
Yeah. Right, so should we take a look at what's out next week?
Go ahead, yeah.
On Wednesday, which should be when this comes out, we've got Annabelle Comes Home, which makes the doll sound a bit like Lassie, that title.
My dad knew I was watching a horror movie for Midsommar this week, and when I mentioned I was doing a show, he was just like, "Oh, you're not going to review the new Annabelle, are you?" I just stared at him thinking, no, I think Graham would have taste.
He's a proper cinema Eclectica dad if he's disdainful about the idea of reviewing Annabelle.
He really is.
We have a reissue of a little movie about a shark. You might have heard of it. Jaws. The director looks like he might go places.
Yeah, just a little bit.
We have Kursk, The Last Mission, a movie about the doomed Russian submarine mission starring Colin Firth, Matthias Schoenaerts and Leia Seydoux, and directed by, quite exciting this, Thomas Vinterberg.
Yeah. Didn't Mark Cunliffe review a film with Colin Firth also called Kursk last year or something?
I don't recall that, no. He did The Mercy, which is another one.
Right. Okay.
Firth's Bad Things Happen at Sea movies.
That's what I'm probably getting confused with. Right, okay.
Maybe that's it, yeah. We've got Our Time, the new film by Carlos Regadas, the Mexican cinematic Marmite purveyor. Quite looking forward to that, I must admit. I find the more Regadas becomes completely self-indulgent, the more I like him. And this is a 2.5-hour film starring him and his wife playing a married couple, so jackpot.
Nice.
We've got Stuber with Dave Bautista and Camille Nanjiani in what looks worryingly like a sort of slapstick version of Michael Mann's Collateral.
Yeah, I was a bit cautious about that because I noticed Dave Bautista's name, and I quite like Dave Bautista,
Yeah, me too.
So I was a bit curious, yeah.
Yeah. We've got a triple reissue for the 20th anniversary. I saw Mick on Thursday night, and he was distraught to learn these films are 20 years old. Well, the first of them is anyway. The Matrix Reloaded, and The Matrix Revolutions.
Yeah, they were showing a trailer of that. I think before John Wick 3, detailing like Matrix trilogy back when I was back in Leeds when I went to go see that. So it was, well, it makes sense from a marketing standpoint, because it got Keanu Reeves' name on the map. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. We have The Brink, a new documentary about the former Trump staffer Steve Bannon, directed by Alison Clayman, who last did a film that I know Rob of this parish is very fond of, I Wee Way Never Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
And we have what's going to be our film of the week next week. We have Jim Jarmusch's zombie comedy The Dead Don't Die, starring, deep breath now, Bill Murray, Adam Driver, Tilda Swinton, Chloe Sevigny, Steve Buscemi, Danny Glover, Caleb Landry Jones, Rosie Perez, Iggy Pop, Sarah Driver, RZA, Selena Gomez, Carol Kane, and Tom Waits.
Bravo, well done.
Yeah.
That's some great cast pitching there, and honestly, this has been one of my most anticipated films of the year because
Who could resist Iggy Pop as a zombie?
Tom Waits is a hobo. Come on. And Tilda Swinton is a Scottish hairstylist turned samurai. Come on.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to be doing next week. But until then, that's been your lot from Eclectica. I've been Graham.
And I've been Aidan.
See you next week.
Is our plan to inform people about the zombie danger before it gets dark?
I guess so.
Because we passed Farmer Miller's place a little while ago, do we need to inform him?
Farmer Miller.
Oh, okay.
Oh my. Are you in this together?
So how the do you kill a zombie?
Slow down a second, Cliff. Excuse me. You gotta kill the head.
Kill the head.
Decapitate. It's the only way to kill.
Jesus. You gotta get prepared.
Oh, that's bad.
Yuck.
That's unfortunate.
She's alive?
Holy
Look out, kids. The dead don't die.
I got this, Cliff.